Houston Real Estate Radio starts right now.
Thanks for tuning in to Houston Real Estate Radio to learn more about real estate news and information you can use on your next real estate transaction. I'm Shannon Register.
I'm James Brown.
You can find more about our guests and the issues we bring you on HoustonRealEstateRadio.com. We also have a fan page, and you can listen to us on iTunes or the iHeartRadio app. If you've got a real estate question, give us a call, 281-882-8088, or tweet us your questions using hashtag HRER. If we answer your question on the air, we'll be happy to send you a copy of our real estate home buying guide. That's a guide that is put out by the National Association of Realtors, and a lot of people have really been enjoying reading that. It's got a lot of great information in it. Today's show is sponsored by The Perfect Light. They are a landscape lighting and they're an outdoor lighting company, but they also offer mosquito misting systems. So The Perfect Light, you can find them at theperfectlight.com. They have a location here in the Houston area in the Woodlands, and they do a great job. Come out and give you free estimates, see what your needs are. All right, we've got a lady calling in from Miami joining us today, James.
Yes.
Marianne Cusato. She's the author of The Just Right Home. When it comes to buying, renting, or moving, or just dreaming, find your perfect match. You've got some advice for homeowners, Marianne. You speak to all of those people who have something in common, a desire to feel good about where they live, right?
That is true. Where we live has a tremendous impact on our quality of life. Mm-hmm. So we're all looking for that right fit.
You talk about the American home is changing.
It is. It's shifting. We're coming out of this recession, and we're looking for different things. We're looking for value that we can touch and feel. Rather than having a whole bunch of amenities that we don't use, we want to really engage with the money we're spending.
That's interesting. So bigger's not better anymore.
Size is all relative. Gratuitous size is not needed anymore. Some people need a larger house, they have a larger family, and that worked really well. But one size doesn't fit all, and all square feet aren't made equal. So what we're seeing is a return to really paying attention to how we're living in this space. So it's an exciting time, and we go over a lot of these elements in the book to help readers understand what it is that's most important to them.
So who do you target? Who did you target the book to? Who is the book for?
It's for homeowners and it's for realtors. It's even for people that are interested in renting. Basically, anyone that's trying to figure out where they want to live can go into this book and pull the elements that matter most to them, because there are so many factors that we're trying to balance that a lot of times we don't really know how to articulate what matters most to us.
I think as a realtor, that's a hard part of our job, is finding out exactly what the buyer wants, because so many times the buyer will say they want one thing, but when you show them those houses and they're not a good fit for them, and then you show them something else and they go, yeah, this is what I want. Well, they weren't able to articulate that. Mm-hmm. They said they wanted something else than what they really wanted. They weren't able to clearly tell you what they wanted, but when they see it, they know they want it.
Exactly. And we all have a really good internal compass. We do have an understanding of what we want, but being able to explain it is something that's very different, because there's a divide between the perception of what we think our home should be and the reality of what's delivered sometimes in that package.
Mm-hmm.
So how does your book help a buyer weed through that and make that connection between their desire and what's actually out there on the market?
We ask questions about how they want to engage with the space, how they want to engage with, say, a yard or a neighborhood. We talk about really big picture things. We talk about detailed things to get them thinking about, not necessarily, we don't say how many square feet do you want, we say how do you want to live in your, where do you eat dinner in the house? What do you do on weekends? So we go through and ask them to think about how they're going to use the space and live in the space. And then from there, they can articulate and say, well, these are the things that we really want. This is what we're trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. And at that point, then you can start to find a house.
because families really do function very differently. We have so many blended families now. We still have traditional families. We have families where the grandchildren are moving in, the children and grandchildren are moving in with the grandparents. So many different family combinations out there, and their needs are very different.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true. We're seeing a lot of multi-generational families. What's interesting is we're seeing a lot more 1- and 2-person households, and then larger households. In a lot of cases, the mom, dad, and 2 kids doesn't, that as the primary demographic is not the way it's set up anymore. So while that still exists, we're seeing a much wider range. And that's why, a lot of times we sort of follow this formula of what we think we should do, or where the current is pushing us in terms of what we're told we should do. And that may not mesh with how our family lives. And, one of the things we say in the book is buy the house with a live-in value you want. Don't buy it for a resale value. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times there's a lot of fear that you need X, Y, and Z in a home because the next person wants it.
Right.
And you may not actually want it.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, especially with things like home theaters and all the different bonus spaces that are out there now. A lot of people are looking at houses and wondering, I don't really want that, but should I get it?
Exactly. And what we're seeing is because the setup of the family is so structurally different than it used to be, and we're seeing these multi-generational families, we're seeing these smaller households as well at the same time on both extremes. If a house works for your live-in value, most likely it's going to work for the next person too. So don't buy a house out of fear of, this mystery next person, because there's a really wide range of what people are asking for these days.
James and I are here in the studio talking with Marianne Cusato. She wrote the book, The Just Right Home. Marianne, you talk about all square feet are not created equal. What do you mean by that?
If you have, let's just say, a 2,000 square foot house, it has 8-foot ceilings and windows on one wall that are 4 feet high, it's going to live completely different than a 2,000 square foot house with 9 or 10-foot ceilings and 6-foot windows on multiple walls. The space and how it feels is defined by what comes up out of the ground. Square footage is a number, and it's something that we need because you need to be able to tell whether you're talking about a 2,000 or a 4,000 square foot house. Mm-hmm. There's a point that we need it, but we've become sort of crippled by numbers. By this is the number of bedrooms, the square footage, a checklist of items.
Right.
The space itself, how it's defined, that's going to tell you how it's going to live.
You've talked about how it's really important how the home is tied into the job, the family. We talked about family, the health, and the personal finances and schools. I know that a lot of people, when they're purchasing a home, really look at the school district and they look at the proximity to the job. And you've talked about how the interesting part about how it's really tied into the family. A lot of people don't think about that. What do you mean when you talk about the health?
Well, just how much time you spend in a car will, really impact your health. Whether you can, if you're spending a couple hours a day in the car, that is, there's study after study showing how that affects your back, how it affects your weight, your blood pressure. So there's a physical aspect to where we live in terms of can you get out and take a walk when you get home, even if it's just down the street.
Yeah, so it's not so much location. It's more how it fits your lifestyle and the proximity to the things that you're interested in.
That's right. It's proximity.
Right.
Because location is a place. Proximity is where that place is in relation to the things that you do and the things that you want to do. You have to do and you want to do. So, and I'm not saying, give up the car. It's just that if you can get your proximity a little bit closer so those drives are shorter, it's going to enhance every aspect of your life.
You're going to have more family time, for
Well,
sure.
I think in a lot of cities, you really don't have the option if you want the quality of life. Cities like New York or Washington, D.C., for example, have very, very, very long commutes. Other places in Virginia I know of, maybe Miami. Houston, average commute is 26 minutes, but, there's a very different quality of life in the suburbs than you get in the city.
Well, that's true. And so, for most Americans, commuting is going to be a fact of life. But the question is, when you get to where you're going, can you get out of the car for some of it? So, if you're auto-dependent on all sides, then that has a great impact. If your part of your day requires, a long trip, that's fine. But when you get there, when you get home, if there's something that you can engage with and walk to, or have a very short trip outside the car, that's when it starts to make a huge difference in your quality of life.
Now, you've said that you really need to look at your family lifestyle and what your needs are inside the home when you're buying it, not so much look at resale value. But you do talk about in the book that you need to plan as well. Plan for the children you're going to have or the retirement you're going to be going into in a few years. Just, whether you're going to have a parent moving in with you, those sort of things. So explain that, because I guess, there is a difference between looking at how it's going to resell versus what you're going to need in the future. But either way, you're not looking at your immediate needs.
Well, exactly. You want to think ahead. If you're renting, you can, you're not as locked in, and, you don't need to think as far ahead. And for some people, renting is the right move at the right time. But the minute you step over into purchasing a home, if it's going to be a viable business, business move for you, if it actually to make it an investment, you need to think about a longer term picture of how long you're going to be there. And if you're buying for a year or two, it's not going to make sense. So as you're thinking about the length of the time you're going to be there, think about how your family might grow. Will you be having more kids? Will some of your kids be going off to college? Might they be coming home after college? The elderly parent. So there are ways of sort of building in ahead of time a plan for adaptability of how your house can adapt to your lifestyle.
Marianne, you have the most comprehensive buyer's book I've ever seen. It is amazing. 360, 400 pages. It's just amazing in depth. And I hope everybody, I know it's on the bookshelves right now, and I hope everybody who's interested gets a copy of it. It's very, very, very thorough, very, very informative.
Right. Well, thank you so much. We all have to live somewhere. And we all want that to be the right move, and especially now that the economy is coming back and things are starting to move a little faster. Mm-hmm. As the market speeds up, we all need to be able to understand what works for us, so we don't make a wrong move, so we don't jump into something that's the wrong fit. And that's what happened is the economy when it was really good, people made a lot of jumps into things that weren't quite fitting for them. So we hope this book can be a resource to help people make that right move.
I definitely think it would be, and it will be. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. Tweet us your questions at Shannon Register or at James Brown TX, or call us at 281-882-8088. Shannon and I will be right back.